All right, so get this. We're going to deep dive into some financial advice that's a little bit different today.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we're checking out this YouTube video that I saw.
Okay.
It's called 26 Minutes of Brutal Financial Advice from a Millionaire. It's on this channel called I Will Teach You to Be Rich.
I've heard of that one, yeah.
Yeah, have you seen this one?
I don't think so.
So it's not like the typical, get rich quick kind of thing.
Right.
It's more about like how to build a life that's really good, where like money is kind of like a tool, I guess.
Yeah, like a part of the bigger picture.
Exactly.
I like that.
So the thing I thought was really interesting about this is that the guy in the video, he kind of flips the script.
Oh, so
like usually you start with, budget spreadsheets, like numbers and stuff like that.
Right, the nitty gritty.
But he goes straight into this thing about like defining your rich life.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's like not even about money really.
Interesting. So it's more about like a mindset or a vision.
Yeah. Exactly. And he makes fun of those like generic, financial goals.
Like what?
Like, oh, I want to have $1 million by the time I'm 30.
Yeah, those arbitrary numbers.
Yeah, he's like, those don't really motivate you as much as like a real vision. You know what I mean?
I totally get that. It's like having a picture in your mind versus just a number on a page.
Totally. And it's like he's saying, forget about having $1 million. What does a rich life look like to you, like personally?
Yeah, that's so important to define for yourself.
And he uses this like really interesting example about a pen travel journey.
A what?
Yeah, like imagine going all around the world, like jet setting to different countries.
Okay.
But you're like searching for the most beautiful handcrafted pens.
Wow, that's specific.
Right. So for someone, that could be their rich life,
Yeah, I guess for some people, it's like collecting rare items or experiences.
Right. But for someone else, it might be like having a little cabin in the woods.
Right. Or like the freedom to just do whatever they want.
Exactly. Like pursuing your passion or something.
Totally. So it's like, it's really personal, what your rich life looks like.
Yeah. And he's saying figuring that out is like the first step.
So before you even think about like, your budget and your 401k and all that.
Yeah, you got to know what you're actually aiming for.
Well, I like that because it gives you a direction to move in.
Right. So are you saying that like before we even start thinking about money stuff, we should take some time and figure out what success means to us?
Absolutely. And he actually says that waiting to do this is like a big trap that people fall into.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He compares it to waiting until you're like 55 to make friends.
Oh, like it's harder later on.
Exactly. It's like those things are easier to build when you start early,
Okay, so how do we actually like, how do we take this idea of a rich life and turn it into something real?
That's a good question. Does sound a little fluffy, right?
Yeah, like how do we get from like daydreaming to actually planning our finances?
Well, that's where his second point comes in, which is all about like building a solid foundation.
Okay.
He calls it the tripod of stability.
Tripod of stability.
Yeah. So it's like three things: work, relationships, and money.
That's interesting.
And he compares it to building a house.
Yeah.
You need a good foundation before you can do anything else.
Right. So it's like the groundwork.
Yeah, exactly. And the first thing you do when you're building a house is make sure it's not on fire.
Whoa. What?
Yeah, that's what he says. He uses that analogy to talk about getting rid of high interest debt. Like he is serious about this.
High interest debt, like credit cards and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's like that stuff is like a fire that you need to put out immediately.
Wow. So he's saying like, don't even worry about anything else until you deal with that.
Right. He compares it to like running up a down escalator.
You're going nowhere fast.
Exactly. You're losing ground faster than you can make it up.
That's a good way to put it.
And he talks about the math too. Like if you're paying like 27% interest on your credit cards, it's almost impossible to build wealth. Even if you're investing and getting like a decent return, like 7% or 10%.
Yeah, because you're basically losing more than you're making.
Exactly. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom.
Right. You got to fix the hole first.
Exactly. So once you've got that high interest debt under control, then you can start building your emergency fund.
That's like the safety net, right?
Exactly. It's like having a cushion for when things go wrong.
Which, let's be honest, they probably will at some point.
Yeah, in this economy especially.
So it's like having that money set aside so you don't have to go into debt if something unexpected happens.
Exactly. Like if you lose your job or you have a big medical bill.
It gives you some breathing room.
Totally. And he says you should aim to have like 3 to 6 months of your essential expenses covered.
That seems like a lot.
It is, but it's worth it for the peace of mind.
Yeah, I guess so.
And he doesn't just stop at the emergency fund. He actually talks about like changing your whole mindset about budgeting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's really into this thing called zero-based budgeting.
Zero-based budgeting. I've heard of that.
Yeah, so basically it's like starting fresh every month and deciding where every single dollar is going to go.
Like intentionally.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of just like tracking where your money went,
Yeah.
you're actually making decisions about where you want it to go.
That sounds kind of empowering, actually.
Right, it's like you're in control.
So it's not just about like cutting back and being restrictive.
No, it's about making choices that align with your values.
And making sure your money is working for you.
Exactly.
He even says you can ditch those like detailed budgets where you track every little thing.
Yeah, he's like, just ask yourself a simple question. Where do I want this money to go?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Right? It's so much less stressful than like those complicated spreadsheets.
Okay, so we've talked about like not burning down the house and building a strong foundation.
Like the first two legs of the tripod.
But this rich life thing, it's got to be more than just like avoiding debt and saving money, right?
You're absolutely right. That's where the whole putting your money to work part comes in.
Okay, so let's get into that in part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay, so he starts talking about making your money work for you.
Right. Right, not just like sitting there doing nothing.
Exactly. And he starts with like the basic stuff, high yield savings accounts.
Yeah. Yeah, those are pretty common these days.
Yeah. But he makes a good point about like even small differences in interest rates.
Right. Over time, that can really add up.
Yeah, especially with compounding, you know.
It's like free money, basically.
Right. And he actually recommends this specific platform, Betterment.
Oh, yeah, I heard of that.
Yeah, he even says he moved some of his own money there.
Interesting. So he actually uses it himself.
Yeah, I like that it shows he believes in it, you know.
Yeah, it's not just like theoretical advice.
Exactly. But anyway, high yield savings accounts are just like the first step.
Right. There's got to be more to it than that.
Yeah. That's where it gets really interesting. He starts talking about investing.
Okay, like stocks and stuff.
Yeah, but specifically index funds.
Index funds, okay.
And he's really not into like those get-rich-quick schemes.
Right. Those are usually too good to be true.
He's all about like a slow and steady approach.
Like the tortoise and the hare.
Exactly. He wants you to win the long game.
I like that.
And he uses this really funny analogy about picking individual stocks.
Oh, what's that?
He compares it to like someone who's never played basketball challenging Steph Curry to a three-point contest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like it's just not a winning strategy for most people.
Well, right, unless you're like a professional stock picker.
Exactly. So instead of trying to beat the market,
right,
he says you should just ride the wave, you know.
They go with the flow?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He argues that for most people, investing in like a diversified portfolio of index funds,
okay,
that's the best way to grow your wealth over time without taking on too much risk.
So it's like spreading your bets.
Exactly. And he even brings up this guy, David Swensen.
David Swensen, who's that?
Oh, he was like this legendary investor. You know, he managed the Yale endowment.
Oh, wow, that's a big deal.
Yeah, he was like a big shot in the investment world.
Okay, so what did he have to say?
Well, he believed in this really simple approach, actually.
Really?
Yeah, he was all about having a well-diversified portfolio of index funds.
Okay, like across different types of assets.
Exactly, like stocks, bonds, real estate, all that stuff.
So you're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He thought that spreading your investments out like that,
right,
it helps to reduce risk because not everything goes up or down at the same time.
Makes sense.
But let's be real, managing all those different investments, that can be a lot. Especially for someone who's just starting out.
Yeah, that sounds overwhelming.
Right. And he acknowledges that that's where target date funds come in.
Target date funds, those sound familiar.
Yeah, they're like the set it and forget it approach to investing.
Perfect for lazy people like me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically you choose a fund based on when you plan to retire.
Okay.
And it automatically invests your money in a mix of different assets.
Okay.
And as you get closer to retirement, it gradually becomes more conservative.
So it's like having a robo-advisor.
Yeah, exactly. It takes care of everything for you.
No need to pick stocks or anything?
Nope, it's all done for you.
That sounds pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it's a really popular option these days. But of course, like any financial product, there are fees involved.
Right, nothing's free.
And he talks about that he acknowledges that cost is a concern.
Right.
But he also emphasizes that these funds are actually pretty inexpensive.
Especially compared to like hiring a financial advisor.
Exactly. And he makes a good point. It's not just about the upfront cost. It's about the long-term value you're getting.
Right, because if you make bad investment decisions on your own,
you could end up losing way more money.
Yeah, it's true.
But anyway, he stresses that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to investing, you know.
Right. Everyone's different.
Exactly. It's about finding a strategy that aligns with your goals, your risk tolerance, all that stuff.
So if you're comfortable managing your own investments,
you could build your own portfolio based on Swensen's recommendations.
right,
But if you prefer something simple and hands-off.
A target date fund might be a good option.
Exactly. And no matter what approach you choose, he really emphasizes consistency and patience.
Right. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. Investing is a long game. He even says that sometimes focusing on increasing your income can have a bigger impact on your finances than like obsessing over investment returns.
Interesting. So it's not just about cutting back, it's about earning more too.
Exactly. He wants you to think about ways to leverage your skills and talents.
Right. To make more money.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground, defining your rich life,
right,
building a solid financial foundation, and now putting your money to work through smart investing strategies.
Okay, so what's next?
Let's tie it all together in part 3 of our deep dive.
So we've gone through like a ton of advice from this video, brutal financial advice.
Yeah, it's been pretty intense.
We talked about like making your own idea of a rich life and then like setting up your finances to be strong.
Right. The foundation.
And we even talked about some smart ways to invest your money.
Yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
So before we finish up, I'm really curious, like what were the big things that you got from all this? What really stuck out?
What gets me is like how he changes the way we think about money. It's not about being obsessed with numbers.
Right. Not like chasing some random goal.
Yeah, exactly. It's about making your money match the life you want. A life that feels good and means something.
Yeah, like a life that's actually rich.
And that all starts with figuring out what that rich life even is for you.
Which is something a lot of people just skip over.
Yeah, they just jump into the how-to stuff.
Yeah.
The budgets, the investments, all that.
But he's saying the why is just as important.
Yeah, maybe even more important.
Because if you don't know why you're doing it.
What's the point? Right.
Right, you're just going through the motions.
And I also really liked how he talked about how financial freedom is like a journey, not like a finish line.
Yeah, it's not like you hit a certain number and then you're suddenly free.
It's more about making choices every day.
Right, little choices that add up over time.
Exactly. And those choices don't have to be huge, scary changes.
Right. Like you don't have to quit your job and move to a cabin in the woods.
Unless that's your rich life.
True. But he talked about like those little things you can do consistently.
Right, like setting up those automatic transfers to your savings.
Or asking for a raise.
Yeah, or just generally like building good habits with your money.
So that it becomes like second nature.
Exactly. And he also reminds us that financial freedom isn't about limiting yourself all the time.
It's about opening up possibilities.
Yeah. Having the money to do the things you love.
Spending time with people. Giving back to your community.
Or just enjoying life,
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay, I'm listening.
What's one tiny step you can take this week to get a little bit closer to your own rich life?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Maybe it's finally writing down those goals.
Or talking to your partner about money.
Or maybe it's just doing some research about investing.
Whatever it is, the important thing is to actually do it.
Because financial freedom doesn't just happen.
You have to make it happen.
One choice at a time.
That's a good way to put it.
Well, that's it for our deep dive this week.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
We'll catch you next time.